At the present time, there seem to be two theories for this creation. One is called the Big Bang theory, which goes something like this. At some long ago time, 8 billion or more years ago, there existed a tremendously big ball of condensed energy. Then, like some huge celestial firecracker, this thing exploded, scattering galaxies and stars all over the universe, and where, theoretically, they have been spreading out ever since. This theory is of course invalid on several counts. First, on such an explosion, such objects would be hurled away from the center in a straight line, and it is known that our universe rotates just as do the various galaxies. Moreover, it is now known that our universe is filled with strong magnetic lines of force which are curved in a pinwheel fashion, just as are those seen in various galaxies like our own. One more point. It is also known that the further away any particular galaxy is from us, the faster it is traveling away from us. Our own galaxy is proceeding on a curved line out into the unknown at about 600,000 miles per hour. Other galaxies further out are known to be traveling at 2 million miles per hour. In any explosion, any object traveling away from the center of the explosion constantly loses speed, not gains it. The second, or steady-state, theory of creation, while more valid, is still incomplete. This theory postulates that from the center of the universe or some unknown point, new galaxies and new stars are constantly being created where, after a few billion years or so, they gradually die or fade away. And while they are so living their cycle, they somehow strangely become accelerated toward the outer unknown periphery of the universe. What gives these stars or galaxies this constantly accelerated speed is still unknown. And we may ask, where and what is the original source and origin of any energy which comes into our visible universe? The presentation of this existing evidence, which was discussed on this television program, shows that our present-day science of astronomy is still in complete and abysmal ignorance of the creative forces. Not only in the field of astronomy and the macrocosm but in nuclear science or the microcosm. Let us take for example the steady-state theory of the creation of the universe and, with a clear and lucid explanation, fill in the obvious lacking elements which would complete this theory into a rational fact. If the astronomer could picture a tremendously vast vortex of energy which existed in the more immediate fourth, fifth and sixth dimensions, where, in this great centrifuge, tremendous forces were at work through a certain positive and negative relationship as posed by various polarities of wave forms of energy compounding this vortex. Certain movements take place which can be likened to the action of centrifugal and centripetal forces. In other words, while positive energies travel toward the periphery, other more negative energies travel toward the center, becoming more compact or dense and more negative as they approach this center. Within the very center, energy is extremely compressed, so much so that a certain amount of transductance takes place into the third dimension. Vast curved magnetic lines of force stem out into the third dimension and, like the power lines from a powerhouse, conduct some of this compressed energy into our third-dimensional universe. First in the form of simple electrons and protons which, in a commonly formed eddy current, assume the form of hydrogen atoms. Great masses of these hydrogen atoms through certain pressures known as ionization are brought together into vast tenuous nebulosities called galaxies. These cloud masses and hydrogen atoms are being constantly impelled away from the central core by a tremendous repulsive force, which is actually the flow of electromagnetic energy composing the great magnetic lines of force which all flow toward a common terminating polarity at the periphery of the universe. As these cloud masses are expelled away from the center, the ionization of positive and negative particles and the formation of hydrogen atoms begin to form nuclei. These collect and grow larger, eventually forming a star or sun. In this aggregate process of positive ionization, polarization also occurs in varying distances from the sun. These negative polarities form the planets. Not all suns form planets simply because in the rapid steady rate of expansion, great magnetic turbulence occurs which sometimes breaks up these various planetary polarities where they disintegrate into the semi-gaseous form, to again be used as new material. This magnetic turbulence will also explain a nova, for here again ionization and polarization are vastly speeded up to a point where a burning out occurs. The star flares up and disappears. Magnetic turbulence will also explain pulsating stars, for here it can be seen that a certain cyclic motion is involved in the ionization and polarization process. Expansion from the central vortex, as has been previously explained, will also compensate for the differences in speeds of stars and galaxies from the center into the unknown. For as these heavenly objects proceed along the curved or bent magnetic lines of the universe is also rotating, following the same direction of rotation, but at a lesser rate of speed than the vortex which formed it. Everyone knows that an object traveling on the rim of a wheel travels much faster to complete one revolution than does an object nearer the center of the wheel. Therefore, as the universe rotates, any galaxy constantly accelerates in speed as it progresses further out toward the periphery. The galaxies themselves are primarily formed in vortexal fashion as the result of vast eddy currents which are interplaying among themselves in their magnetic fields. The galaxies, as spiral nebulae, can be pictured somewhat like a snowball rolling downhill. The galaxy is rotating between tremendous lines of force. The principles involved here are quite similar to those found in an alternating current motor. As for the suns and stars themselves, the same process of synthesis is taking place to form the various known atomic constituents. The same gyrating centrifugal and centripetal forces always create and sustain any atom from the immediate fourth dimension. Not all energy which stems from the central vortex becomes atomic material. In the process of this vast cosmic hysteresis, many of these units of energy which can be called electrons or protons, fly off into the free space of the third-dimensional world. These tiny particles or electronic bullets, upon entering Earth's atmosphere, are known as cosmic rays. Likewise, the strong magnetic lines of force extending from the central vortex in conjunction with other such similar vortexes, create an infinitely vast and complex system of magnetic lines of force. All of which go to make up the controlling forces to hold various planets in their various orbits around their respective suns, as well as controlling the shape and ultimate destiny of various galaxies in this great universe. One more point must be made. Before his demise, Einstein presented to the world the theory of spacetime continuum, wherein he mathematically proved that the speed of light, 186,210 miles per second, was non-existent in space and that light could and did accelerate 4 or 5 times that speed. If Einstein was correct, what then becomes of all the known mathematical computations which astronomers have made regarding the distances found in our universe? How can the modern astronomer correctly evaluate the temperature of some star by using the method of inverse proportions, figured on the basis of candle power light which comes to the Earth? Sometimes millions of years after it started its journey. It is clearly indicated that at the present time the astronomer, like the nuclear physicist, is hopelessly entangled in a web of intangibles, and the further he proceeds along the false lines of his various assumptions, the more inextricably enmeshed he becomes. As far as the future is concerned, it will remain for the scientist of the future age to cut these Gordian knots and to present to himself and mankind a factual and realistic composite science based upon an understanding of creation which begins in the higher and presently unknown dimensions. Inasmuch as the question may be raised as to what is the common terminating point of the cosmic universe, this means that in the expansion of this universe, a point begins to be reached where the magnetic lines of force again reling themselves with the positive corresponding polarities of the upper fourth dimensional vortex. Something similar to positive and negative magnetic line linkage observed with a common horseshoe magnet. At the point where the lines of force begin to bend into the fourth dimension, all atomic constituents following these lines of force will begin to disintegrate back into their original energy constituents. This bending will explain the known curvature of space. This disintegration can be seen in such elements as radium and uranium, the older of the known elements which have already begun their disintegration and subsequent reabsorption back into the fourth dimensional infinite. Someday the astronomer may find a neighboring and similar universe, and which does, in the same sense of polarity interactions, form the structural network of magnetic lines which makes energy conductance from higher dimensions into third-dimensional forms possible. Also such subsequent atomic constituents as elements which are the inductive facsimiles of this great cosmic evolution. This, then, is the cyclic evolution of creation, a way in which the infinite creator, whom people call God, regenerates himself and makes of himself every visible and invisible form and substance known to mankind. When, in some distant future, mankind can universally see this great creation in action, religions, wars and associated dogmas and creeds, together with the lusts and bigotries, will largely disappear from the minds and hearts of men, and in the place of these materialistic elements will be superimposed an abundant freemasonry of mankind which will make not only stellar space travel possible but will give all men who so understand an access door into the higher spiritual realms of light. Because of the vast and intricate complexities of the cosmic universe, the foregoing addendum was presented in a more easily understood form, a sort of thumbnail sketch. In future presentations planned by the author, a more thorough and complete dissertation will be entered into. So far as the astronomical findings contained in Addendum No. 1 are concerned, these figures were drawn from currently existing astronomical suppositions and the author does not vouch for their accuracy. More accurate facts and figures will not be coming to the astronomer so long as he attempts to evaluate the vast creative cosmogony on the basis of known third-dimensional reactive formulas. Such computations are only relative and fall almost as fast as they are created. For instance, on the aforementioned television show, a pertinent issue involved was the age of the universe. A few years ago this age was thought to be 2 billion years, based on the theoretical evolution of the uranium atom. Today believers in the Big Bang theory state that it is at least 8 and possibly 13 billion years old. And one of the doctors on the aforementioned show is now bringing forth a new evaluation of 24 billion years, based on the assumed life cycle of a certain bright star. To the future, then, we salute the new day which will bring forth a new and better science and understanding of the creative universe. About the author. Any attempt at a thumbnail biography which would accurately and fully portray the life of the author would be a gross disservice. Sufficient to say the future history of the world will unquestionably prove the author to be,